Hey guys, my name is Eric. It's a pleasure to be here today. I'm not going to do a whole lot of intro about who I am and whatnot, but I just want to say that I went to Orange Coast College. I think I took my first class that I failed when I was a sophomore in high school. And then I'm really happy to be here today. Not only am I taking a couple classes just for my own edification, which I really love, but my mom recently died and she is on the OCC Alumni Board, Hall of Fame Alumni Board. And so, you know, kind of like, I never dedicate stuff to people, but kind of like, I'm thinking of all on this one. So let me just give you a brief background as to who I am. I've got a bachelor's in health science, a master's in sports psychology, a master's in sociology, a PhD in sociology. In England, I'm a chartered psychologist in England, which means nothing in the United Kingdom, in the United States. I'm a qualified personal trainer. I've been recognized by Britain as being one of their top academics, which gives me this ridiculous label of ACSS. I've been recognized as a high quality teacher by some organs. Britain loves to rank everything. So, you know, I've been recognized as some high quality teacher that I was nominated for, that blah, blah, blah. And does anybody know what GLAC is? This is the one I'm most proud of. It's an official qualification. It's good looking and funny guy. Okay. So, yeah, that's me. I'm a GLAC. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So today's lecture is a real quick snapshot in my journey through my academic research. I'm going to present just some of my academic research, but I've chosen the more controversial things for you because controversy is fun and academics should really enjoy being controversial. But I want to highlight to you that enjoy being wrong. If I say something and you think, well, that's not right, and then I change your mind, congratulations. That's what education is all about. You are paying for this degree, right? You're paying for this education. You didn't come here to learn what you already know. If you came here to learn what you already know, come on in, guys. Come on in, come on in. If you came here to learn what you already know, well, then you're not getting your money's worth, right? So if you learned something new, congratulations, you got your money's worth. And finally, yeah, no guns, right? Yeah. Even if you don't like something I have to say, no guns. All right, let's move along. Connor, would you please be my timer? I want to devote no more than 4 minutes per screen. If I'm over 4 minutes, just say, Eric, move along. Do your marine thing for me. I'm going to give you a little bit of my background so you can understand, contextualize my research program. I always knew I was gay. From the time I was 8 at least, I knew I was gay. But my youth and my adolescence was in an incredibly homophobic period in Western culture history. I went to high school in the 1980s, and it was a horrific, horrific time to be gay in the 1980s. I didn't come out, but being gay was both my greatest strength and my greatest weakness. Being gay in the 1980s was so highly stigmatized that drove me to suicide at one point. But on the other hand, being in the closet for 25 years of my life was my superpower. Because it made me realize that adults, that preachers, that politicians, that academics could be wrong. I was a kid who grew up being suspicious of what people said because everybody around me hated me. Everybody around me hated gay people. And I knew the problem was not with me, the problem was with them. And that was my superpower. It gave me the ability to see through the bullshit. It gave me the ability to think differently, to think more critically, to think more academically. And I've used that superpower and I've gone on to use my academic career in that trajectory. And so what I'm going to do, I'm sure, I don't know all of you, I don't know many of you personally at all, but I'm probably going to put you in a state that we call cognitive dissonance. Now, cognitive dissonance gets used in multiple ways in multiple research projects. The way I mean it is simply like you see with these balloons here. That you have a feeling, a perception, and then I'll come along with the data, the reality, and that puts these two things into conflict. Now, what most people do when they get into a state of cognitive dissonance is they fall back on their feelings. As I like to say, human beings feel first, and then they justify their feelings. They have an opinion, they feel, and then they say, well, how can I justify this? So maybe they'll have an opinion about a topic, green walls are bad. And then they'll go to Google and say, why are green walls bad? And then you get confirmation bias, and it builds and it builds. So I'm going to come along, hopefully, to the other side of some of these topics with you, and that's going to put you in a little bit of a turmoil. You might think, whew, I'm having a hard time arguing with him. that makes sense what he's saying, but I don't like what he's saying, and you make cognitive dissonance. Now what you do with that cognitive dissonance is your own choice, but somebody who's doing a degree, I suggest you interrogate it more fully. Perhaps have me back to give a lecture on that particular topic in more detail for various classes. And so essentially, I'm asking to put you sort of in the middle. Now, I also put up this picture of a centrist here because I'm also a centrist, politically and in life and everything. I find both extremes difficult. And so, as a centrist, I'm going to say something that everybody hates, right? Everybody's going to find reason to hate me for something I'm about to say today. And that's okay. I'm just going to ask you to separate your dislike of what I have to say from who I am as a human being, because I'm coming at it from a data perspective. Next slide, please. Thank you, Dean. All right. So, in 1993, I came out of the closet as America's first openly gay high school coach. And that was in Huntington Beach, California. There was a great deal of violence. There was a great deal of discrimination. And that shaped my activism. So I went back to do a PhD to study the experiences of gay men in sport. And I've studied gay men in sport, lesbians in sport, transgenders in sport for decades now. And I'm going to give you the crux of what I have to say. And that is that my research shows that there is less homophobia in men's team sports than there is in the classroom. Than there probably is in this classroom. That there is a cultural perception that men's team sports are highly homophobic. And I'm here to tell you that that is not what the data says. In fact, it's quite the opposite. The data says it's quite the opposite for a number of reasons, but if we continue to banter this idea, this cultural myth, that team sport athletes, particularly male team sport athletes, particularly football, basketball, baseball, etc., that these men exhibit highly homophobic attitudes, well then you are committing an act of prejudice. You are prejudging someone without data, right? That is what prejudice is to prejudge. So when people say this to me, the media says this to me all the time, Eric, why are men's team sports so homophobic? It's like, whoa. What evidence are you using to say that? And you might be thinking, the only evidence we really have left is they say, well, there's not a whole lot of openly gay men in soccer, baseball, football, correct? And I said, that's absolutely correct. But in sports where gay men dominate, diving, ice skating, dance sports, in music and theater and acting, where gay men are way outnumbered by the 2.8% of their population, do we say those institutions are heterophobic? We do not. So you might be asking, well, Eric, why is it that gay men aren't in these sports in large numbers? And the answer is actually quite simple. Gay men are about 2.8% of the population. We are a finite supply. We do not exist in all spaces equally if we are overrepresented in one space. If 70% of, just go with figure skaters, are gay, then that means there has to be fewer gay athletes in other sports. We are a finite population, right? Why is it gay men aren't in football and soccer and basketball? Because we don't care about those sports. We don't like those sports. We like things that are judged. We like things like RuPaul. We like individual sports. We don't care about those sports. Of all the gay friends I have, the number that actually watch NFL on TV, one. We just don't care about it. And we need to accept that, and we need to be happy about that. We need to say, isn't it a marvelous thing that there's such diversity in the world that gay men just don't have to care about NFL-style football? All right? Okay, that's thesis number one. Next slide. Oh, by the way, at the end, you're going to get the reason I'm going really quick is I want to hear from you. I want you to debate me, I want you to argue with me, and I got sweeties for those who do. Reason number two is all this talk about toxic masculinity. That is another form of prejudice. The concept of toxic masculinity in and of itself is a label that implies prejudice towards heterosexual males. Now listen, when I came out of the closet in 1993, I was berated. I was physically beaten by heterosexual males. Right? No question about it. But when I went and did my first research project on heterosexual men's attitudes towards gays in sport, it told me something else. The data changed my mind. And that is the journey I've been on ever since, is to say, what else has the data got wrong about heterosexual men? So there's this slippery, loose, prejudicial stigma concept called toxic masculinity. And my argument is, that's bullshit. So we have words. Even if I were to say, what is toxic masculinity? People start to sort of cone it down from this whole broad brush against men to, oh, well, it's this and that. And I say, oh, you mean it's hyper-aggressiveness? Because that's a thing. Oh, you mean it's narcissism? Oh, well, that's a thing. But it's not exclusively a male thing, is it? It's a male and female thing. The concept of toxic masculinity has no academic parlance anyhow. There's no theory behind toxic masculinity, but it is used to denigrate heterosexual men, particularly heterosexual white men. And it's become popular to say things like, oh, well, heterosexual men are not in tune with their feelings. And for women to say, oh, you know, men need to be more open about their feelings. Well, I'm here to say three things to you on that front. One, men don't have the same depth of feelings about things as women right off the bat. They do not. Men recover from trauma, psychological trauma, quicker than women. Men don't have the need to emote as much as women. So judging men off of women's standards is no different than saying, why don't we and expect women to partake in the joy that men partake joy in? It's a one-way street. The second thing is, they say that men are emotionally vacant. But plenty of studies, and there's some contrasting studies here, but plenty of studies show that heterosexual women, they don't want men who are emotionally expressive. They don't want men who show vulnerability. So when we target men by saying they're toxic and they're out of touch with their emotions, what do heterosexual women really want when they're looking for a partner? They don't want somebody who's gushing. They don't want someone who's vulnerable. But the third thing is, men do. Young men do relate. They relate in the form of the bromance. Now, not every male will have a bromance, and it is absolutely true that some young men are big winners, and they've got bromances, and some young men are big losers, and they become incels. It's absolutely true that there's a loneliness epidemic. At the same time, there's a lot of bromances. It's like, you know, you get lucky or not. Team sports really help with the bromance. But in that bromance, we've always known that men have friendships where they do stuff together. Men are like, you know, to use my brand, I've been in Britain for 20 years. Men say like, hey mate, let's go, whatever, bowling. I don't put anybody in bowls anymore. Hey mate, let's go bowling. Oh, we're doing something together. We're playing a video game together. We are bonding. We are now friends. That is not a bromance. A bromance occurs when men show vulnerability, emotional difficulty to each other, and their mate turns around and hugs them and says, I love you. Now, in my international studies, I show very high rates of heterosexual men in colleges across this country and in the UK kissing each other. Not in a sexual way, but in a I love you mate kind of way. In that particular kiss, they're showing romantic interest, and they're also showing that they're gay friendly as well. They cuddle a lot. They hold each other quite a bit. You may not call it cuddling, they may not be spooning per se, but they also do that. They lie around together, they watch TV, they cuddle together. And my research has shown that the threesome has gone from 2 girls and 1 guy in majority to 2 guys and 1 girl in majority. Something that never would have happened in the 1970s, 80s, and 90s. Half of my participants in my studies about intimate male friendships say that they actually prefer the company of men more than women. Next slide. This one's going to piss a lot of people off. Monogamism. In my book, my research on monogamy, I wanted to know why do men cheat, and not from an after-the-fact perspective. Because one of the problems with research on why men cheat or why women cheat is it comes from psychologists who have them in their office post-divorce. And then post-divorce, everybody's looking to defend themselves, even to your therapist. You're looking to defend yourself, to not make yourself look bad. So what I wanted to know is, why do men cheat before they've been caught cheating? right? And so what I did is I first said, okay, well, I need to study these men, so how am I going to find them? Well, the first thing is, I've got to find men who are more capable of cheating, right? And who's more capable of cheating? Men who are hot. Because the hotter you are, the more opportunity you have to cheat. And I'm like, well, this is quite convenient for a guy who all of my students for the past 20-something years have been athletes, male and female. So it just so happens to be that I've got all these built-in research subjects in my classes, my sports psych classes. So, all right, I got all these jocks, right? They're all toned and, and all that kind of stuff. So they have more opportunity to cheat than, let's just say, the opposite, which would be nerds. And then the second thing is, you need to find people who are in a rich sexual marketplace, right? People who have that opportunity, where there's lots of dynamics at play. In a rich sexual marketplace, everybody has always said is university. Now that's dying. People are having less and less sex at your age all the time. College students are having less and less sex all the time. But when I did this research, it came out in 2012, again, university. So it was a perfect situation for me to interview 100 male athletes at my university and 20 gay male athletes at my university, and not athletes, 20 gay men, and and with the other qualifying criteria that they hadn't been in a relationship for 2 years. And that was a harder part to get, right, because they're young. And here's what I found. I found, and the thesis is, heterosexual men do not cheat because they fail to love their partners. Heterosexual men cheat because they love their partners. You see, there's an inverse relationship. The longer a couple is together, the more love, if they're going in the right direction, the more love they have for their partners. All right? I mean, when I first met my husband on the first date 27 years ago, I wouldn't have taken a bullet for him. But 27 years later, I would, right? So we know that the longer you're in a relationship, the more you kind of become as one, right? But also, the oldest sexological finding we have is the longer you're in a monogamous relationship, the less sex you're going to have. There might be some strange, outliers, but for the most part, sex comes on hot and heavy at the beginning of a relationship, and then it gets boring, and then we spice it up, and then we run out of toppings to put on that pizza, and things get more boring. And so what these men find themselves is in a situation in which they are longing for sex, probably promoted also by pornography. Now, I'm hugely in favor of pornography. I'm not anti-porn at all, but it does have some consequences. Probably in a relationship to the fact that they have all these sexual images and scripts available to them all the time. They are novelty-seeking creatures. They look for sex. They want sex outside of that relationship. And there's an ironic proclamation that actually by cheating on their girlfriends, they're showing that they love their girlfriends. Why? Because they don't have children together. They don't have property together. They're not tied together. If they didn't love their girlfriends, they could just break up with them and go to a new girl. And you might be thinking, well, if they're going to have sex with someone else, why not just break up? And that's because sex is wonderful but tawdry. It's not the important part of a relationship, and we all know that, right? We all know that our grandparents are not having frequent sex in their old age. That's not what's important in a relationship. And so if they didn't love the girlfriends, they could just break up with them and leave them. So ironically, it serves as a proclamation. But our culture says that cheating on your girlfriend, or vice versa, because women cheat too, is one of the worst things you could possibly do to your partner. It's very low down on my list of worst things you can do to your partner. But I argue that monogamism, the belief that there is only one way to do relationships, and that's through monogamy, is a danger to children. And that is because divorce is incredibly hard on children. Now I know that half of you or so will have divorced parents in here. The reality is, in large-scale studies of children from divorced households, it is significantly more difficult on them and their life chances than if they emerge to a married couple. And my argument is that cheating in relationships, not having an affair, I'm not talking about dating someone else. I'm talking about dad goes to this business conference and gets off with somebody who doesn't even know her name, that the anger we have towards that is a danger to children because it's one of the leading causes of divorce. Most psychologists will tell you, they don't get to divorce before cheating's happened. 75% of women divorce men when they find out they've been cheated on. 25% of men divorce women. So that's an interesting stat. So my argument is that our expectation of monogamy in a couple has direct harm to children when that monogamy fails, and my argument is monogamy almost always fails. Almost always, for those who can. You can debate with me later. Next slide. Thank you, Dean. All right, number 4. So I've come from the other side. I used to be a hardcore feminist, second-wave feminist. I've been awarded by feminist organizations, etc. I've come to the other side. I'm now on the other side of the fence that modern-day feminism, and I know feminism has many forms, but modern-day feminism is vested in a victimization narrative where they only look at the ways that women suffer in society, and women do suffer in society, no ands, if, or doubts about it. There are all sorts of disadvantages to being female. I am not denying that in any way, shape, or form. But can we please also not deny that there are all sorts of disadvantages to being male? I mean, I have to laugh. Ukraine went to a Russian war, and I saw these scripts about, the privilege that men have, etc. And I'm thinking, well, who's being drafted against their will to fight? And who is fleeing the country and being permitted to flee the country? Women are not drafted to fight. Men are. Now, I can take that through all sorts of other things. Studies of the judicial system finds us incredibly prejudiced towards males. For example, let's go, the high school teacher has sex with a student. That high school teacher is male, the student is female, he's in trouble with the law. Much higher sentencing than if there's a high school female teacher having sex with a male student. There's all sorts of advantages that women have over men in society, and yet we focus on statistics that aren't even real, like the wage gap statistic. Just completely not real in any way, shape, or form. It's illegal to give different pay to the same job, full stop. So that wage gap that women earn 77 cents to the dollar, it overlooks the fact that 2/3 of university students are now female. That women are outperforming men in colleges and universities in such huge numbers, farther than it was in the 1970s, when the government had all sorts of programs to get women into college because there wasn't enough women in college. But nobody cares about the fact there's no men in college. Women are not only outshining them 2 to 3, but women are getting the A's. Women are coming out and making more money than men up until the age of 30, and then biology takes place. All right. So my argument here is focusing on the statistic like the wage gap, where they say, let's look at the airline industry, and they go, pilots are making this much, they're the men. Stewards are making this much, they're mostly the women. Oh, men are making more money than women. Yeah, they are, because you do want your pilots to be paid more than your cabin stewards. All right. So my argument here is that women benefit from men's sacrifice. When you're driving down the 405 and it's closed down, and there's men out there working, they're doing what I call dad jobs. Dirty and dangerous. But what modern feminists tend to focus on is the very few jobs out there we call Fortune 500 jobs. Now, by the way, Fortune 500 jobs, that's a death sentence. That is a horrible, horrible, horrible job. And there's only so many of them. But you know what there's a lot of? There's a lot of men doing work that women will not do. If it's outdoors, it's men. If it's dangerous, it's men. You do not see women picking up the garbage. Those are jobs for men. Yes, some men are what I call top jobs, top of pay, CEOs. Women exist in what I call slice jobs, safe, lower income employment. Indoors, safe, lower, indoors employment. They're not out there busted. Women do not build this building. All right? And so what I'm arguing is we need to stop the gender wars and realize that both men and women suffer under the current system we have, and we need to stop lambasting men. Heterosexual men have taken a lot of crap in the last few years. And as a gay man who was persecuted by heterosexual men, that needs to come to an end, because it's not deserved. Yes, of course, some men are awful, and some women are awful. Absolutely, right? Okay, next one. Number 5. There's also a war against mostly young straight men, because gay men don't have interest in these kinds of sports. As I like to say, and research shows that gay men have higher IQs than straight men. Just going to throw that one out there. You know, it's not on there, but, you know, thank you, you know. I like to say that gay men are too smart to play football or boxing or whatever. But for whatever reason, there's a war, and increasingly it's on boys and men's of color brains. And that is that there are sports out there, football, soccer, hockey, any fight sport where there's head trauma, that is destroying men's brains and leaving them to die early and to die in painful ways. And it isn't just through concussion. Right? We all know about concussion. Concussion is not what I'm talking about here. Concussion is horrific. It has serious consequences. It can have life-ending consequences. It can have life-changing consequences forever. Right? Sometimes you recover, sometimes you don't. Right? I'm talking about the daily hits that a football player takes in practice. The soccer ball heading. The military man who's shooting the gun and getting minor trauma to the brain, which adds up. Now, we have dose response research on this, and I can tell you that for the sport of American football, after 2.4 seasons of play, you double your chances of getting chronic traumatic encephalopathy. Chronic traumatic encephalopathy is characterized by accumulation of tau proteins in the brain, obviously a shrinking of the brain. It spreads from one lobe to the next, starts off in the frontal lobe, where we have our impulse control issues. And so heterosexual men go through these stages that are essentially like Alzheimer's or dementia, but it hits a decade or two earlier than Alzheimer's or dementia. It has been categorized. People go, oh, he's got Alzheimer's, he's got dementia. No, it's CTE. And we're learning also that PTSD for military vets, it's not always PTSD, it's often CTE. So we're now studying their brains as well. And so my argument is that 2.4 seasons of play doubles one's chances of getting CTE. After 9 years of football, your chances of getting CTE go through the roof. Mathematical modeling shows that no less than 60% of NFL players will have CTE. No less. Unless you think that this is something that only impacts adults, the younger you play, the worse it is, particularly 11 to 13, because your brain is going through rapid growth phase. People think, oh, well, they don't bring much weight against each other. They don't, but they also don't have musculature to absorb their impact either. And helmets don't help, they make things worse. Helmets do nothing to stop CTE. They do nothing to stop concussion. They make things worse. So my argument is that increasingly, white parents are saying, you're not playing those sports. And what we see is kids of color, particularly from poor backgrounds, looking to use sport as a way to get out, or to get to university, or to become a pro. So increasingly it's become an issue of color for men as well. Not exclusively, but increasingly. And so my argument is quite simply, it's child abuse. And if you think it's child abuse to smack a child, well then you gotta think it's child abuse to have two children tackle each other. I mean, here's the way I always say it to the press. If I am angry, I've got two sons, right? If I'm angry with my 13-year-old son, and I say, you didn't do your dishes, smack, right? I'm going to jail. That's child abuse. But if I say, you didn't do your dishes, now you got to go 3 rounds against me in a boxing match, that's sport. So we need to reframe the way we view these activities. I call them child abuse because it's abusive to a child's brain. And I don't think there's any place for these sports in our society. Not when we can play flag football. Right. Okay, that's 5 controversial things for you. Right? Some of you are going to be like, oh, I like that one. And others are going to be like, oh, I want to kill that guy. So now you get to speak. And go to the next slide. I think we're done. I've got some rules for this though. So I want you to tell me how am I wrong, because it's more fun to hear the arguments than to hear people saying, oh, I agree with you on that one. I want you to play hard, like, be very critical of me. Don't be nice. Don't be like, be nice. State your thought specifically. Be nice to me. Don't blame me. And instead of being angry at me for being the messenger, just think of me as a thinking coach, right? If you're a sports person and your coach says, you did that wrong, you need to redo those steps, You don't get angry at your coach for saying that. They can be your thinking coach. Rule number 2 is tell me your logic, not your feelings. I don't want to hear, oh, well, I feel that monogamy is really good for people. Well, I feel that these things are really tasty, and I don't care about that. Give me your facts, give me your logic. And third is when you admit you're wrong, when you realize you're wrong, when that cognitive dissonance seeps in your brain and you go, oh, I think I'm wrong on this one. Eric, you changed my mind. Then let me know and you'll all get back to me. All right, who's going to be our first? Say how we go. Yes, love it. Well, he has that first, so you know, get directly here. What's your name?
So, Jimmy.
Jimmy, yes,
Jimmy.
Hi, Jimmy. Pleasure to meet you.
Last one, CTE.
Yes.
So, I'm just going to disagree of not calling it child abuse. I believe in CTE. I played professional hockey for 15 years. I know I have CTE. I know it's going to affect me later in life. Me personally, my view is, I wouldn't change a thing about it. I loved playing the game growing up. I wouldn't hold my parents responsible for saying it was child abuse for letting me play hockey growing up that way. I wouldn't change anything about it. I don't think it's child abuse because I think there's an enjoyment out of the game I got as a child that,
yeah, I hear you.
that I would go, no, my parents, they couldn't pull me away from the ring. They
Sure.
wouldn't, you know, and I was like, no, I want to play. Like, this is the fun thing in my life that I'm doing.
I get that.
So, because they didn't pull me away, is that considered child abuse?
So my argument to you would be that you did not have, yeah, first of all, your feeling, right?
Okay, sorry.
Did I feel?
I was just talking.
I
I was rambling.
First thing I'd say to you is, and I'm not trying to be mean here at all,
No,
right?
no.
But this is what I said to the head of the rugby football union, and he looked at me and he didn't know how to answer this. He said, children love playing this sport. And I said, children also love blowjobs. Do you agree that children should be able to consent to having oral sex with condoms, there's no chance of any disease whatsoever, because the children likes it? And so, obviously, you're probably going to say no to that. Most people would. I mean, Jimmy, you may not.
I'm thinking.
You may not.
But
most people would say no to that, right? And so then the answer becomes, does the law? And look, my view is this: once you are 18 or 16 in England, once you are of age of majority, I don't care. If you play all the football you want, all the hockey you want, as long as you're making informed decisions and the hockey organization is informing you, right? Then it's your life, your whatever. But when they're children, the law protects them and says they do not have the right to consent. So when you intentionally endanger a child's life or their health by subjecting them to brain trauma, I call that child abuse, even if the child likes it. Now I know you say that you wouldn't change anything about it, but that is what we have to tell ourselves. That's how we make peace with ourselves for all of our choices, right? People say that about, you hear this with military parents. Their child's died in the Iraq War, which was a pointless and useless war, and then they have to convince themselves that, they're proud of them, they died fighting for their country, etc. Otherwise, the anger just grows. It's like, why the hell did you put me in these sports? Now, I will say about your parents is they didn't know. They're clueless, right? So I'm not calling your parents child abusers.
Yeah.
They were clueless. They didn't know. So that changes things. But now that we do know, it is incumbent upon those sports organizations to inform parents. So what am I saying is...
So should all sports be abolished?
No, I'm not. I've never said abolish. Turn football into tag, take out checking in hockey, take out heading the ball in soccer.
Even if you still took out those things, there's still...
Accidents will still happen.
Of accidents.
You have a very good point. Accidents will happen. But there's a difference between, you take 2 football linemen, that's not an accident. You can't drive your car down the wrong way on the 405 and call it an accident when you hit another car. The law is designed to keep some cars going that way and the other cars going the other way to keep them separate. The minute you put those 2 children and you tell them to square off and to tackle each other, that's not an accident. That's intentional. That's to intentionally endanger a child's brain. I call that child abuse. Now, if the goal is to grab the flag, right, and the goal is to grab the flag and stay away from the brain, that's not structural. That's not intentional. If an accident happens, and it does happen, That's not child abuse. Falling off the curb and getting a concussion is not child abuse. Pushing a kid off the curb is child abuse. You understand that difference? Any thoughts on it? Do you change your mind on anything?
Not yet.
Okay.
Not yet. I gotta think about it for a bit.
All right.
I'm not...
We happily come back. Number 2. Well, what was your name?
Anna.
Hi, Anna. Pleasure to meet you.
It's not criticism. I was just wondering, is this purely based on opinions or research?
Oh no, this is all research.
Research?
Oh, I don't. My opinions are not part of this game here.
Some personal experience or not?
Well, personal experience is what brings researchers into their games, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I became an academic because I was discriminated against, beaten up by jocks, right? But then I got into the game, and I was one of these. I did a PhD in sociology. In sociology, a lot of sociologists, they tend to be far, 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 far left, right? And they're like, yeah, stick it to the, you know. And I got into that game, and I was like, well, but that's not. I hated straight men, but that's not what the data showed me. I had to pivot. I had to change my mind. So my life experiences have brought me to this, right? And then, like, why did I get into all of these things? They all relate. Most of my research became a defense of heterosexual men. That's a big line that runs through all my research, but I've got lots of other research as well. Sometimes it's because I got a PhD student who's really interested in something. So I have interest in these things, but none of this is an opinion. This is all factually based material. Now, you could say that my philosophy, my theory, that monogamism is bad for children is an opinion, but at least there's a direct line of logic and reasoning there that fits with the data I found. This is not just opinion. I've changed my mind on so many things that make your head spin. I've even changed my mind on some aspects of Donald J. Trump. Right? I mean, you know, he supports Ukraine more now. He supports Ukraine. I'm like, okay, I like that guy now, and that part of it at least, right? So for me, being an academic means you can freely change your mind, and if you can't change your mind in relation to the data, then my perspective is you're not an academic. Then you're a theologian, or you're not even a theologian. Then you're just I don't know. There's a word for it. People just do stuff because that's what everybody does. Yes.
Yeah.
My friend.
Thanks.
Phillips?
Yeah.
Good to meet you, Phillips.
So I have 2 questions.
Sure.
Well, 2 like I don't know how to describe it, like responses to number 5 and I think number 2. So for number 5, I was wondering if you believe in the fact that all cultures are like equal or not.
No, I do not.
No. So
I'm not a cultural relativist.
Okay. How?
No,
would
I'm
you,
sorry. I judge a culture by its attitudes towards minorities. So if you show me a culture that pushes gay men off cliffs, that culture is not equal to ours. Absolutely not. Nope, not going there. If you show me a culture where women are treated as second-class citizens by law, right? Because people can disagree civilly, right? No, that's not. No, I do not. I'm not a cultural relativist. Don't tell the sociologist that.
So based on your principles, what defines sports as child abuse?
Sports, because everything else that you would do to harm a child's brain would be child abuse. Because smacking a child in the head is child abuse. Because you are intentionally causing harm to that child's brain that we know has a very high probability of leading to long-term damage, early death, right? And so for me, if we say that, and I'm not arguing children should have sex, but I'm saying if you think that children shouldn't have sex because they're unaware of the long-term impacts and it can be negative and they should have to be an adult, or I'd argue 25 really if I could, until their brain is fully developed to make these reasonings, then they don't have the ability to make informed consent. So my argument is quite simply, you are putting children into a structured event that we only allow because it has history behind it. And if we were inventing sports anew today, none of these sports would have people colliding in the way that they do. Does that help you?
Yeah, I guess the way I see it is that it's not really child abuse in the fact that it's not a malicious act. Because like when you're hitting someone in the head, you're maliciously doing it. Like this is based on tradition and culture, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, yes, you can say it's child abuse, but does it really define the criteria of child abuse? That's like.
So I've got a paper I'll share with you where I go through what the child abuse laws are.
Yeah.
And how this falls within that. And I actually go to the sporting bodies themselves and I take their definitions of child abuse and I show that this is consistent with their definitions of child abuse. And then I also bring to legal judicial cases and where I show that the courts have also interpreted this as child abuse. And increasingly, as time goes on, we will view this as child abuse, and we will look back and we will say, just as putting kids in the factory for 14 hours a day, or having them sling monkeys and wrenches in Navy ships or whatever was child abuse, we will look back and we will go, how the hell could we have done that? That day is coming, and it's coming quite rapidly. So yes, I'll tell you what, Philip, you said, right?
Yeah, Philip.
I'm less concerned as to whether you call it child abuse. I'm more concerned that we just stop it, right? And I lead in the United Kingdom, and it's really strange. I just left the United Kingdom on short notice, which is why I'm so happy to be lecturing here, because I didn't want to retire, but I had to leave the United Kingdom because they wanted all my tax money, they wanted all my money. So I had to leave, and but in the United Kingdom, I lead a huge organization of academics, psychologists, kinesiologists, etc., who have been working diligently for a decade now to stop this, and we made tremendous progress. We're the ones who got the Football Association to say no more heading the ball until you're 13, then you only get 10 headers. We are making huge progress in that capacity, and I've been one of those ones that keeps pushing them, pushing my peers, and I came out and said that we needed to start calling it child abuse. Most of my group disagreed, several agreed. We wrote a paper. That paper got a lot of press. The second that paper came out, Rugby Football Union announced for the first time ever that they were instigating a touch rugby league. Right? So I believe that the title has political expediency behind it. But I don't care what you call it, just don't want kids doing it.
Second thesis? What was that one? I forgot. Oh wait, no, third maybe? Wait, no, second. Oh yeah, for this one, you talk a lot about men, but actually no, maybe it's the third one. Okay, maybe it's the third one because you mentioned about men cheating because it's like part of their nature, right?
Yes.
Yeah, but like, how would you differentiate like between men and like discriminate, like abolishing sex completely?
Yeah.
And then just focusing on their personalities itself, because like I've been learning about like personality, my personality psych class, and we're getting there. We're going to get there for like what's called the modern research. We're on like psychodynamic, but like for modern research, there's like the five like there are people like there's like dark triads traits,
Yep.
and then there's like conscientiousness, and like some people are unconscientious, which leads them to be cheating. Is that right?
What you're arguing is that people who are higher on the sociopathy scale are more likely to cheat because they care less about each other's feelings. I don't know any research that shows that specifically, but it kind of makes sense. But my argument, I take a very evolutionary psych approach to this. I think good luck trying to beat desires out of people. Right? We can try to culturally suppress desires. But one of the things I do when I lecture on this to my students is I show a picture of two 16-year-old boys who are being hung in Iraq for having same-sex sex, or as Iran for having same-sex sex. And I think, why is it in cultures where there's the death penalty for gay acts, men still commit them? And so my argument is, good luck fighting your biological urges. Not easy to do. Anybody who's woken up and said, I am going to skip lunch today, and I'm not going to eat that Snickers bar, and then 3 o'clock rolls around, and you bought that Snickers bar and you've eaten it, my argument is it's not easy to fight our human nature. It's not easy. Now, I'm not saying you don't have some capacity to do it, but to do it day in, day out, day in. So my argument is also we need better solutions here. Open relationships. We need the viability of pornography as a socially acceptable tool for heterosexual men to get their needs met, for all people to get their needs met. I didn't even say heterosexual men. So it's complicated, but I'm a strong evolutionary psychologist on this one, and I ask myself, why is it in studies in San Francisco, gay men have been shown to have over 1,000 partners, and lesbians have had 12? In this incredibly, gay sort of atmosphere where we've thrown off society's shackles, why is it gay men have had so much sex and women have had so little? And why does that fit what people desire over generally? And I argue this is biology at play.
Do you think like sexuality, like overrides like gender norms?
Yes, and that's in this book. I call it the. Are you allowed to cuss in college in these?
Yeah.
Are you allowed to? I call it the. Oh shit! Oh shit! Oh shit! Oh shit! Oh fuck! Orgasm. And it is that men have done this, right? You know, maybe they're young and they're masturbating. They're in the same room as someone and they're trying to go quiet. They close, they get to orgasm. The less they care, then they have orgasm. And they go, oh, what have I done, right? And that happens with the quote withdrawal methods, like, oh, I'm going to pull out. And oh, what happened, right? So my argument is that yes, we do shut down our faculties that help us make culturally appropriate decisions the closer we get to orgasm. And that's one of the things here. But also I argue that when a kiss is valued, stigmatized as much as vaginal sex, then once they start kissing the girl at the party, then there's no breaks for them to go on to, because either way they're going to get broken up with. Okay, so you have questions? Yes. I got your name in your class, I should know.
My name's Caitlin.
Hi Caitlin. I knew that. I actually did know that. Go on, Caitlin.
So you say that you're not anti-pornography?
No, I'm not anti-pornography at all, no.
Could you just explain a little bit about why you're not?
Well, the first thing is, when feminists started their anti-pornography rages, I thought, so sick. It's like, if it wasn't for pornography, I didn't go to, when I was in high school, they didn't teach me about gay sex, right? How did I learn it? Through pornography, right? So that in that capacity. And the second is, pornogaphy is a very wonderful thing. It helps you get your rocks off and gives you new novel stimulus all of the time. Have what we call your wank, have your wank, fall asleep easier. Yeah, pornography is a great thing. You don't have to consume it. I'm not forcing anyone to consume it, but I have no issues with it. I've got lots of friends who are sex workers and porn stars. I love it all. Now, you can start to say, obviously, somebody who's trafficked into it against their will, obviously, if they're people who are under the age, all of these things, of course it can become problematic then, right? But my view is consenting adults who have agreed to do this and then people consuming it, great. Like, why not? Right there on your phone, just pull it up, boom. It has become a bit of a, studies on porn addiction, as I like to colloquially say, porn addiction is just bullshit. It's just bullshit. It's not an addiction. If you want to know what addiction is, look at a meth addict. Right? That's addiction. When people say, oh, they're a porn addict, that's just what we say when we get in trouble for something. And in fact, studies show that the higher your Christian belief system in this country, the more likely you are to identify yourself as a porn addict. I had a kid that I was, mentoring, whatever, coaching, whatever. And he came up to me and he said, oh yeah, my girlfriend broke up with me. And I said, oh, why is that? He's 17. And he said, because I masturbated to pornography. And I was like, oh? And she says, yeah, so, I'm a sex addict. Right? So, yeah, I'm hugely pro-porn, and I wish we'd stop berating the porn industry and porn people. That's very cool. And it's become increasingly acceptable. When I first gave this talk in 2012, about 70% of females at UCI that in a class I gave said that men using pornography was cheating. Today, very few young college women think that men using pornography was cheating. So we have had that shift. Did I give you your sweep?
Oh yeah,
Okay. Who's next? Yes, what's your name?
Maddie.
Hi, Maddie.
Wouldn't pornography though lead to the objectification of women and people and just
Yeah. So, if women desire to make money by using their feminine prowess, then my view is that now we're in a line of opinion here, okay? But my view is, if men use their ability to move bricks in a way that women can't, to lay bricks, to make money, go you. And if women use their sexual charms to make money, I find that empowering. I'm like, go you. You do what you want to do. I don't see why it has to be. Look, why is it a woman gets paid to have sex and we stigmatize her? That's misogyny. That's downright misogyny. But a man goes out and literally breaks his back to build this building and pays for it with arthritis, bad back for his life, or plays NFL and ends up dead at 50 from brain trauma, and we don't stigmatize that?
Well, isn't that a choice? They choose to...
Oh, I'm not in favor of women being trafficked, don't get me wrong.
No.
I'm saying women who choose to go into pornography.
No, the men building buildings, they choose that job, and women
Yeah.
could do that same thing.
Well, women choose to go into pornography. Again, I'm very much so against people being trafficked, right? I'm not talking about... What? Oh, do you mean that women suffer from economic situations which makes them go into pornography as a last resort?
No.
Okay. Women have agency. And if they want to be porn stars, hell yeah, you go, girl. I'll love you all the more for it. Do you see the cultural bind? You're next. Do you see the cultural bind I'm talking about? Where we vilify women for using their natural gifts of men being attracted to them to make money, whereas we don't culturally vilify men for going into these incredibly dirty, dangerous jobs? Like, it's a double standard. My view is we're all prostitutes. Right now, I'm not being paid, but if I was, I'm prostituting my knowledge to you. We all do something for money. And we all have talents that we capitalize on to make money. And I'm fine with that in the sex field, full stop, whatsoever. Yes, what's your name?
I think my name's Caden.
Hi, Caitlin.
Caden.
Caden, hi, Caden.
Yeah, I think your point is more that because a small percentage of women go into porn, all women get objectified because of that.
Uh-huh.
I think that's more. But
But
my question's different.
my argument would be no. You don't think women are being objectified? Men determine whether they want to have sex with women or gay men with men in two milliseconds, two 1/100ths of a second. So studies on how fast men perceive sexual attractiveness, boom, instant, right? So, I mean, a lot of women don't know this, but you could take have a man stand there and watch people flood out of the subway. And the man can go, it's a superpower. The man can go, yes, no, 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 with surprising accuracy as to who they find sexually attractive. Men do this, evolutionarily speaking. And so the greatest facet of the sexual objectification is the fact that one is born male. Women are much more adjudicated in this. They take things like, oh, he's got a nice watch on, he's got a red Ferrari, right? Men are just like, she's hot. I don't care how rich or poor or smart or dumb she is, she's hot, I want her. And women are much more like, and of course these are stereotypes, but women are a lot of truth to them, women are much more like, ooh, you know, oh, I like his personality, I like, etc. Now, I'm not saying that women don't also find men physically attractive, but men are just boom, 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 boom. And so that's the greatest source of objectification of women. And I was like, no, that's just, you're not going to outrun biology. Not going to happen. Yes?
I've got a couple things.
Okay. Do you want two or do you want one?
I don't need either. Number one, do you think, well, I think that women can and do equally objectify men as men objectify women. And I also think, especially in like the lesbian community, women objectify each other almost to the same part that men objectify women.
Okay.
So I think that a main reason that women take all these other things into account rather than just sexual desire is because from a young age that is something we are taught to do. Men are not necessarily taught to do that from a young age. So it's more in our face that they are, not in our face, but more obvious to recognize that men go for sexual desire or are more obvious about than women are. And I think that that is along with the issue, not the issue, but along with monogamy. I personally...
Can I stop you on the first one so we don't lose the train?
Yeah.
So you're arguing for a social constructivist perspective, which falls mostly in the sociological domain, which is that women are taught these things. And my argument is, Bill, there's plenty of research to show that's just completely bunk. That's just absolutely bunk.
Why?
Because the research shows it's...
Can you give me this research?
Sure, go with toys. Go with toys.
Okay.
Right? Boys are attracted to toys that move and do things. Girls are more attracted to dolls. And they take young kids who not had toy exposure
How does
before.
that correlate to physical attractiveness? Because women are more attracted to pretty dolls and stuff that are more physically appealing than men are attracted to things that are more mobile and would not correlate to sexual appeal.
I think I've lost the argument. You're saying that women are constructed to see men as a financial resource.
No, I'm just saying, I mean, I guess that's part of it, but like women, when growing up, you're exposed to like Disney princesses.
Yeah.
And taught the concept that men need to have these certain characteristics separate from sexual desire, and women having sexual desire is more looked down upon than men having sexual desire.
Yep.
And women are taught to not have as much sexual desire as men.
Yep.
Therefore, decreased from the public eye, even though I don't know how fact this is and how much research is done, but I think women are as sexually active as men are. I think that a lot of times they aren't having as much sex as men are because we have been trained to not want to, or not express the want to do so.
Okay, yeah, I mean, that's perspective. Is a chicken or egg
I'm
argument.
also asking, is there...
So the
I'm
kind of
not
research I'm
saying
talking about is where they
anything
flash
is
images quickly,
Yeah.
and you have to decide hot or not.
Mhm.
And the men are like, boom, 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 boom. The women are like, give me time. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not arguing that society has no value. I have a PhD in sociology. But my argument is things are more complex, and where sociologists tend to think, oh, we can solve everything through culture. We can just give boys and girls different books, and then they'll all be the same.
So
and
do you think
no, so far from reality.
what women are exposed to at a very young age play any role in the difference on men and women's sexual behavior?
I think it exists. I think this is what we're getting to.
Yeah.
I think there's a biological set point. I think evolutionary psychology is a undervalued and, very. I'm an evolutionary psych aficionado. I don't love all of the work, but man, you just can't run away from our genes. And so I think there's a set point, and on many instruments, men and women are different.
Okay.
As a right, but then culture makes it more.
Okay,
Right. So there's a set point that culture then makes more.
Talking about how specifically men cheat in long-term monogamous relationships, why specifically men? Like, because I understand that men obviously cheat more often statistically. But has there ever been any research on women having the same desire to cheat?
I'm the only one who's ever done that research in the world.
Because I
I'll
think
tell you
that
what happens
women
then.
have the same desire to cheat
Oh,
as men too, and
yeah,
I think that
yeah.
monogamy is bad to keep a relationship going for a long time. But I don't think that we should only allow men to cheat because they're the ones that express it.
Oh God, I'm so with you on that. Absolutely. So I wanted to find this out because all of the narratives about why women cheat, and when they report to a psychologist, it's all, oh, I'm a victim, he didn't treat me well enough, he didn't this, he didn't that, right?
I think that that's a part of training to be like.
Yes, it is. Oh yeah, and the people who are worse at it is like girls. If your man ever cheats on you, don't tell your girlfriends because they're all going to go, oh, I never liked him in the first place. He's scum. Dump his ass. You can do better. Maybe you can't do better. And maybe the fact that he cheated, not such a big deal. And maybe you don't want to throw away a 3-year relationship because of something like that. But what I wanted to know is, why do women cheat? So I went on to Ashley Madison. I became the chief science officer for Ashley Madison. I found women who were on Ashley Madison looking to cheat on their husbands. And I looked at their conversations with the men they were talking to, 100 women, 2 from each state. And I found out what their narratives were about why they're cheating before they've been caught and while they're being anonymous. And guess what? It wasn't, oh, my husband this, oh, my husband that. It wasn't all the male blaming. It was, I love my husband to death, I'm just looking for some fun on the side. I'm just looking for a little bit of extra twist. And that research was profiled by the American Sociological Association, and it was a big deal, and then guess what happened? The Ashley Madison hack came out. And I went, oh, shit. My research participants could actually be divulged. And so it is the piece of research that I probably spent the longest of my life doing. I looked at, I think it was 12,000 messages between women and men, and I had to pull it from publication after it had been accepted to an article but had not been published yet. And it's still today, it's like, oh my God, I put so much work in that and it's gone. But yeah, my morality stuck up and said, I can't do this now because these women could be potentially devolved.
You can't just, I know it sounds to make a book and change all the names.
Ashley Madison, having anything associated with Ashley Madison now, probably not good for me either.
Ashley Gravison. Just change
Yeah. Listen, I know we're past the hour, so if you need to leave, please leave. I'm happy to stick around and talk longer, but do not feel bad standing up and leaving right now. And then, yeah.
I got one more question.
Yeah, please.
Sorry, on the first slide,
Yes?
this may be more of a the first topic about gay men in sports, you're talking about in football, baseball,
Yeah.
or hockey.
The big five.
Yeah, whatever, right? But then more gay men in figure skating, in theater, stuff like that, right? Do you know what the data is in gay women in those more physical sports than? Because like, is it more of a be gay distinction, or is it more of the physicality of liking that sport? I don't know.
Okay, so I'll give you. So yes, team sports, impact sports, big five sports are bastions for lesbian relationships, lesbian community, lesbian love, the whole bit. I've got a theory I've been working on, but now that I'm not an academic anymore, I just don't think. I don't know. I mean, I want to do it, but and I'll leave you with that theory. It is my view. My thesis is that if you are attracted predominantly to males, then you will be interested in cultural events that are judged, black and white, like sports, like categorizing things, like, and I take this all the way from music and occupation. I've got this theory. I've taken the jobs that men say they like and the jobs women say they like, the music men like, the music women like, the entertainment, the movies, everything, and basically what I think it comes down to is this. If you are attracted to females, you like sports and other things that are black and white. The ball went in the net or it did not go in the net. And if you are attracted to males, whether you're female or male, you like things that are more open to interpretation, open to things that are judged, sports that are judged. A committee of 5 people hold up their numbers. RuPaul, dance, things where somebody can go, oh, I love that dance. Oh, that was the best. No, the 4th dancer was the best. Those are the kind of things that heterosexual women and gay men like, and lesbians and straight men, as a generalization, seem to like these, the ball went in the net or didn't go in the net. And that's a theory I've been working on, but it's not going anywhere because I don't have a job. Yeah, Caleb.
Is that always true? Like,
No,
always
nothing is ever always true.
Okay.
Nothing is ever always true. Nothing ever is always true.
So, can I just make a comment on that?
Yeah.
So, you say 2.8.
Yes, not 10%.
And what's that?
It's definitely not 10%.
Not
like
10%.
Casey said.
So let's say on average you have, I'm going to use hockey as an example. Hockey team is 20 players. You have 4 people that are potentially gay.
Yeah.
No, 2.8.
No.
1.
No, not even.
Not even 1, right?
No.
So, but whereas in a female sport, I'm asking if you know the data, like let's say rugby, for example, where there's 20.
Yes.
And maybe it's just my interpretation of it. I've always been understood, or things that I've seen, not for sure, at least like say 50% of the women.
So here's what you need to know.
That.
2.8% of the general population identifies as gay male. To the best stats we have. 2.8%. There have been 500,000 professional soccer players who have played and retired in the past 50 years. So even decades after playing, 10 have come out of the closet. 10.
Yeah.
1.4% of the population is lesbian. There are more lesbian soccer players out there than you could possibly count in your lifetime. So there is something real happening here, and it isn't just stereotype.
Yeah.
Dr. Ferguson. Again, I know we're past time, so do feel free to leave, but I'm happy to stay and take questions. 1, 2, and then Dean.
Okay, so back to your theory, like, are you implying about like a masculine and feminine like psychology?
Say it again.
Because you talked about how, like, for example, straight women and gay men are similar versus
Yes.
lesbian women and straight men.
Yes.
Yeah. So are you implying that like lesbian women have like more masculine brains? Or
100%.
Okay.
100%. Zero question about it. Yeah, zero. Yeah.
What was your?
And anybody who's ever met lesbians knows,
What was your 4th thesis?
Flip through it, and then we do 1, and then Dean's up.
How could monogamy be bad for kids if it could demonstrate long-term commitment and create more stability because they're not seeing like their parent would like go with someone else for like one night.
Well, first of all, if the children are seeing a parent ever have sex with anyone,
Well, just
they probably,
the
people,
knowing it,
right?
that they did that.
Well, so what makes you think so you've asked a very good question, right? So, but I need to correct you a little bit, right? I'm not trying to do this to be mean, but I don't say monogamy is bad, monogamism is. This belief that there's only one way to have relationships and it needs to be monogamy. Couples can go in and out of monogamy as well. It doesn't need to be always monogamy all the time. Monogamism is bad. My argument at the end of the book is we need more ways of doing relationships. And then the second thing you say is it's good for family stability. But my argument is actually research shows that people in open relationships have longer lasting relationships than people in monogamous relationships. And I would argue people in open relationships have happier relationships because you take jealousy out of the picture, you take an ownership script out of the picture, you learn to take joy in something else that your partner is doing, and you're happier.
Well,
You're not.
Shouldn't jealousy just not be there if you know that you have trust in your partner and you guys communicate?
Oh, yeah, good luck with that.
Well, that,
No,
that should be.
no one does that. No one trusts their partner.
Well, that's
No
what
one
you
does.
try
They
to
say they do it to their friends, but you're like, my husband is out at a super swim model competition this weekend, taking photographs of the women. He was supposed to call me at 8 o'clock. It's now 11 o'clock, and he's in another city where there's alcohol. No, people don't trust their partners. That's why they say, oh, where were you? You said you call at 10, right? Now people.
I feel like if there's not trust, then it's not a reason.
Oh, you shouldn't have. Look, we're human beings, right? We all make faults all the time. If you cannot learn to forgive your partner, you are doomed to be single forever. We are human beings. We all fuck up. We all make mistakes. And so, yeah, I mean, you like to hope maybe, sure, but hey, people mess up. This idea that you're going to trust your partner not to act in a certain way is control. I'm going to be jealous because you're doing something with another girl. I'm jealous of that, so I'm going to control you by using a social script of stigma to prevent you from doing something you'd really like. Whereas in an open relationship, the man says, hey, what is your wife really into? Well, she really wants to become a corporal in the Marines, and then she becomes a corporal. Yeah, yes, well done, honey, let's celebrate. Oh, and she really wants to win the softball championship. I shouldn't, these are all things, sound like lesbian things. She really wants to win the dance competition. Yay, you won. Oh, she wants to do a PhD. Yes, you got accepted to a PhD. And we celebrate our partner's triumphs. But when it comes to, oh, I really want to have sex with that person. Oh, you got that one you really wanted? Ooh, right? And so my advice to couples who are opening up the relationship is you can't use jealousy to control your partner. You determine who you can and can't have sex with, but jealousy is not on the board, because then people learn to use jealousy to control. They go, oh, I'm jealous of that one, and then they get more jealous so that it doesn't happen, right? And so I know I'm hitting you over the head with a reverse system, but you have to answer, why are people in open relationships in happier and longer lasting marriages than people in monogamous relationships? And by the way, does anybody know gay men who do monogamy for more than 2 years? Right. Gay community, we do not do monogamy. We're like, that is for heteros. Like, please. Gay men are in all, they may not call it an open relationship, but they're doing something on the side, right? In some capacity, if they can. If they have the sexual capital to do it. And, yeah, so, that model is out there. I'm not against people doing monogamy. What I am against is we live in a monogamous culture where people meet for the first time, and they say, hey, we're getting on really well. And the guy says, hey, what do you think of open relationships? And that's the last date he gets with her. I'm against the stigma that comes from other ways of being honest about sexual desires. And my view is if we got rid of all that stigma, then monogamy would just be one choice of different ways of doing relationships. If people say, oh, jealousy, jealousy, I'll say, well, it's also hard if you're doing a threesome. Hard to be jealous of your partner if you're in a threesome.
All those sexual desires we just met with the one person, and doesn't that
That's what you think. That is what you think.
Doesn't that show true commitment to
No.
that person?
No,
your desire
it
to
shows
love just that person should override the desire to go out with someone else.
it shows blind obedience to a cultural script that is been completely wrong, misleads people into thinking that there's something wrong with them because they desire sex with someone else despite seriously loving their partner. It puts shame and stigma on people for wanting sex outside of the relationship when that is a perfectly normal, natural thing to happen and will happen to you.
But I feel like it's a spiritual thing to just have that little connection.
Well, if you're going to get religion in the way, we're going to, that connection you're talking about only holds true for this belief about sex. So, guy says, here, women are prolific cheaters. Men get all the bad press here, right? Which is more important, the sexual bond people have or the emotional bond people have?
Emotional.
Emotional, right? So who are real bad violators of this? Women. They all go out with their girlfriends and they say things to the girlfriends they would never dream of telling their husbands. That is a violation of this spiritual connection. It's emotional, the thing women are supposed to value. But then they get angry because the man wants sex with someone else he doesn't even know her name. So my argument is women should not be stigmatized for that. We all need people to vent to about our partners. Right? Women need to sit around and gossip about whatever, or talk about, or whatever, vent about, right? That's absolutely fine. But we're placing all of our emphasis on the physical act of sex, even when it occurs with strangers, compared to having an emotional relationship with another woman where you tell her things that you wouldn't dare tell your husband. So much for the spiritual bond. You see where I'm going with here? Like, why do we only police the sexual part? Why don't we say
because it's just more sacred. It's supposed to be special. It's not supposed to be.
that is a Christian script. It's a current Christian script.
I feel like chemically it does something when you just go out.
Yeah, it's called romance and it's great for a while, but then you ask anybody who's been in a room, who's been in a relationship for more than 2 years, that chemical romance fades. Great band, by the way, but the chemical romance does fade. And I do, trust me, I hear this from youth all the time, but you're like, just look at the studies. People have less and less sex and less desire for sex with their partners the longer they go on.
Well, can't that just be because of natural aging and your hormones?
No, God, no.
I think that is true.
Women don't hit their sexual peak till they're 35.
Your sex drive goes down as you age.
No, your sex drive is, on average, because you're female, I assume, I'm not trying to misgender, so I don't know. Women hit their sexual peak 35 to 38. Men hit their sexual peak 16, 17. I call that God's curse to heterosexuality. I put two gay 17-year-olds together and pooh, put two lesbian 35-year-olds together, you'll never see them come out of the room. But with sexual peak being 35, and most people had long-term relationships well before that, it's not about aging. I would also argue that's kind of an ageist proposition, because it's use it or lose it. So people who have orgasm all of the time continue to have orgasm all of the time. Now, maybe, so for example, the average 17-year-old will masturbate 4 times a week. And if he keeps that up when he's 50, he'll masturbate 3 times a week. And then people who are farther on the scale, well, 80-year-old men can have orgasm more than once a day. So if you use it, you don't lose it. But you are correct. If you stop using it, then you lose it. Just like everything else in the human body. Use it or lose it.
I still think the desire goes down though, for women too, after, once menopause hits, you don't.
That's a different story, and that is absolutely true. Of course, menopause is a long ways away from an 18-year-old. Right? There's a lot of years of loving a partner in between. And I'm not saying that age doesn't decrease sexual desire.
You're saying that what happens
I'm saying it
to
does
women
decrease as much as people think.
It doesn't. So what happens to women that decreasing desire doesn't happen to men? Is what you're trying to say? If they continue to.
I'm saying that even women after menopause can still have strong sexual desires. I've had so many clients who I'll just give an example. I have a 79-year-old client whose wife was threatening to leave him after 25 years. She was 72 because he couldn't sexually get it up anymore to satisfy her. That was harsh. That was a hard one. So yes, women can still enjoy sex post-menopause. Yes. But what you're trying to say is that all of the research showing that sexual desire and sexual frequency goes down for the same person longitudinally, you're trying to have a magical belief system that says because it's spiritual that doesn't happen. And what I'm telling you is that is the folly of youth. And that's what I love about youth. They think that romance is They think that romance is love, right? Which is wonderful. And then you get older and you realize romance is not love, right? Romance is Disney. Romance is chemical.
Long answer.
Okay, so on the thesis 5, you were arguing about the brain, and I was thinking that like, yeah, kids are more likely to have like, they need to have consent, right? Like if you're an adult, that's the only way you can have consent. You can't have consent as a child. But the thing is, the most growth that happens is when you're a child. So in a sport,
Between 11 and 13.
so yeah, like wouldn't a sport be better younger than older, because you would actually learn and develop in that sport better?
This kind of ties into the question I didn't ask, but I think you're nailing something where I'm concerned with the benefits outweigh the bad. If we can mitigate.
So I'll hit you up with two things. First of all is pre-specialization before puberty is a joke anyhow.
Okay.
In the world of sport, puberty changes everything.
Oh yeah.
Everything.
Oh yeah.
Puberty changes everything in sport, especially for women, right? Like elite female distance runners in the numbers as freshmen in high school. By juniors, hips have spread, etc. So puberty changes everything in sport. The second is we should not privilege sport over brain health. That doing well at sport should not be the privilege, thank you. Doing well at sport should not be the privilege over long-term brain health. And the next thing I'll say is, it's really easy to say, oh, I love sport and I wanted to play and I wanted to be good at it. I'll give you an example. One of my PhD students, he broke the world record in ridiculous long-distance bike riding, and then he lost function in his hands from all the crushing, from all the crushing. He did eventually get it back, crushing. He couldn't feel his daughter's face. Right? These NFL players, I have interviewed the daughters, sons, and wives of dead NFL players. And they do not think it was worth it. Losing your loved one over a sport is not worth it. But the other thing I'll say is, these men, they become violent. And they become violent to women. So this woman showed me, her husband died at 47 years of age.
You're talking about the CTE,
Yeah, CTE.
violence?
47 years of age. And I'm thinking, look, I'm 57, look. You know? And this guy, Parkinson's, because Parkinson's is associated with CTE, as well as about 3 other motor neurodegenerative diseases. And this guy, she shows me this photo of this guy, he's doing this, and he just goes, bam! She's trying to help him sit in a chair. So she's trying to help him sit, and he just goes, bam, and smacks her. She recoils and continues to help sit in the chair. Bam, he smacks her again. So the violence that they commit, and the other thing they do is stupid financial decisions. They get into all these weird conspiracy theories about stuff, and they start putting money into weird things, they destroy family. These people, they rot the family. And I'm sorry, no sport is worth that. No sport is worth forgetting your child's name. There's a world famous rugby player who was only 39 years old when he came out in the meeting and said, I won the World Rugby Cup Championship. I can't remember winning it, and most of the times I can't remember my own child's name. I was like, no. So the answer to that is, if you're going to be given permission to make that decision legally, I think the prefrontal cortex needs to be fully developed, and you should be 25. But the law says 18 in this country, I'll give you that much. Saying that, oh, kids will do better in sport if they play early is to privilege sport. Kids will do, but you know what? Kids will do sex better if they get to practice as children. They will be better sexual partners when they're adults if they get to practice as children. But nobody's going to apply that to adults. Dr. Bernie.
Just a little comment, like something, and I can't remember where I read it, it was about football. And I was on social media or something, and this academic that I think I'm remembering the correct one, but I'm not gonna say his name, but he was like, you know, oh, I just can't stand football being the sport. He's like, I think in 100 years, people are gonna look back at, you know, us playing football and Americans loving it so much, and think of it as like the Roman Empire and the gladiators. So
100%.
Yeah, but just, you know,
100%.
I see that point of view, but it's also, it's like,
When you're in it.
yeah.
Yeah, I know it's hard when you're in it. Yes?
So you made a comment earlier about how you think that we should take other options instead of doing like tackle football, doing flag football.
Yeah.
To like, and
Still be physically fit, but not collide
yeah.
heads.
Okay. I agree that I think that aggressive sports like this is child abuse and causes really bad brain damage and issues like that for sure.
So we sink in the sea.
Okay, let me give you an example. My younger sister, she's in high school. She is currently getting recruited for flag football, women's flag football.
Awesome.
And has been playing since she was very, very young.
Bye guys, see you Monday. Thanks for coming, appreciate it.
And she has had 15 concussions total.
From
flag football.
Flag football?
Yes.
It's like soccer.
The women.
Oh, from falling.
And have you seen a women's flag football game in high school? Have you watched one?
I have not, no.
I
watch boys do it.
every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
It is aggressive. Women are aggressive and violent when they're in sports that they're being compared to the men that are doing the sport at a higher level.
Yeah.
Because tackle football, from everyone's perspective, is more challenging, it's better.
Yeah.
So these women that are trying to compete in this field at a limited level now, as only flag football women not being able to do flag football, are pushing the balance as much as they can and being as aggressive and as assertive as they can.
Yeah.
And they're wearing less padding. They have no protection.
So your argument is that maybe I should call that child abuse too?
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Thank you. Because what you're proving to me is what I said to all my colleagues was like, we are ready to hear this term child abuse, right? And what you're doing is you're saying, no, it's not child abuse. You're saying we need to extend the definition. I love it. And I probably will someday.
And I also think it's not even just football. Like, have you looked into competitive cheerleading?
Oh yes, I have.
I was a competitive
did my PhD on cheerleaders.
For years.
Yeah.
From
Those
a
falls are
very
serious.
developmental age till like early high school.
Okay,
Not even.
I'm going to stop you, not to be mean, but I got the point. There are lots of other cultural, physical activities that also have high rates of head trauma. I 100% agree with that. I've called the ones where it's intentful child abuse because of the intent. The intent is to collide.
Specifically, that just because it's intent.
Because it's intent. Now, once we get rid of all those sports, right? Then the next phase of that social movement comes into play, and then we do a statistical analysis and say, actually, per 1,000 hours of playing, girls in flag football. By the way, girls are way more subject to brain trauma, to concussion than men. For some reason, girls are we know that people who have migraines are more susceptible to concussion. Women are more susceptible, and okay, not everybody gets concussion equally. But so for me, as a social movement activist, it's like I can't go around calling everything physical cultural challenge. You got to start with the bigger one, right? And so that's what I've done. But you're absolutely right, and not enough attention is paid to women in these capacities as well. 100% agree. And if I had a daughter and I watched flag football and I saw that all the time, I wouldn't let her play it either. Just like I would never let my kids play any of these sports. And we need to. And you're absolutely right. It's not just colliding, and it's not head to head. It doesn't need to be head to head, right? You can get a concussion from being hit in the legs. It's a whiplash concussion. But like in football, they go up to head the ball. They hit their skull on someone else. Sorry, soccer. They get a concussion, then they fall to the ground and get a second one. But it's also CTE we need to be worried about. And flag football won't be a producer of CTE. It's a producer of concussion. CTE comes from hitting the ball, tackling, shooting.
What would you say? So you think as my example, my youngest is 17, 15 concussions pre the age of 18. Is that not classified as something we should be worried about?
Oh my God, her.
Because you're saying this flag football player.
I'm not going to say this on audio. Her life chances are drastically reduced.
Yeah.
People who have 3 or more concussions have much higher rates of reliance upon the state for social care. They have higher rates of criminality. They have high rates of depression. They have high rates of suicide. Concussion is a bad deal. You hit that third one, you're in trouble.
Yeah, no, I know.
Statistically speaking, not everybody will be.
15?
Yes.
15.
So she shouldn't be allowed to be playing.
No business being out there.
And a lot of them have not been necessarily documented or recorded because she is a very desirable player.
Almost all concussions are not recorded.
Yeah.
Concussion can show up 48, 72 a week, Lots of times concussion is not it shows no symptoms, because you can't record a concussion, you can only record symptoms of concussion. But loads of people will have concussion, including TBI, and have no symptoms of it. So my argument is, if you think that a kid has been concussed, you don't need concussion tests. Like when you were saying today in class that the daughter was sent to the trainer, no. The minute that child is pulled off the field because they suspect there might be a concussion, you treat it as if it was a massive TBI and you follow that protocol. We should not have concussion tests. Concussion tests are a way to keep the big sport businesses in business.
Yeah, it's capitalism.
It's capitalism. Yep. Let's keep them on the field. Oh, they passed a concussion test, they can play. No. If you needed a concussion test, they should not be playing for a
I
month.
tell her, so my husband worked with a girl, woman, sorry, he was young, but a woman who had gone, I think she went to, doesn't matter, she played soccer in college. And it wasn't from heading, she ended up having so many concussions, she had to drop out of college and she had short-term memory. I always wondered how she had the job she had, but yeah, so she had some like lifelong issues. And then we did have, and maybe it was the parents were involved too, but we had a family friend who, daughter's super athletic, stud soccer player, stud softball player, and in high school, her freshman year of high school, the coach said, you had too many concussions, you can no longer play. So that's
something my parents have been fighting for a while, but specifically, I think a big issue with so many kids being in sports so young is that college is so not accessible anymore.
Yeah.
And that a lot of kids in like lower financial situations, like this example, my younger sister, we don't have the capital to pay for her to go to college.
I'm going to push back on you.
She's playing all of these sports to be able to go to college.
OCC is free.
Yeah.
25% of us, 25% of OCC people will go to the UC system.
Okay, I agree. I think
guarantee
that
25% of students who from OCC, if they meet the marks that
I thought it was more.
will go into
I
OCC.
don't think
That's
enough
a guarantee
young
basis.
children are informed that community college is okay.
Okay, so
And that
you're in a whole
is-
different territory, and I agree with you. We
Yeah.
need more education. We need to care less about sport.
Yeah.
These types of sports, particularly. We need to care more about exercise and less about these types of sports.
Okay, there you go, you're bringing it back.
Oh yeah, I'm a huge advocate of
Health,
exercise.
movement, boys, development, I was thinking play, we need to be physically active.
Oh yeah, we need lots of play.
Twist that around them.
Yeah.
Don't make it through impact sport.
That's exactly it. So I'm a huge advocate of play.
Your thesis is, I was curious, did you start all these by believing the opposite and then you were proven wrong?
So that's,
Where was
thank
your-
you. Thank you. By the way, why do I feel like I know you?
I don't know.
Have we ever met? No. Okay. So I started studying game and sport because I thought I wanted to stick it to the hetero jocks of the world. And then my research said I was wrong. And then I started going, if my research said I was wrong, that must mean straight men have changed. And then I started to develop empathy for straight men who were being labeled homophobic when they weren't. So that brought me into my, what I call inclusive masculinity research. And then when I got into that and started getting to the lives of straight men, I started realizing that a lot of the beautiful things that they do that people didn't know about. So I documented that. And then when I lost my feminist, hardcore feminist, like I'm still a feminist in terms of second wave feminist, right? Believing in equality for all.
How old were you?
I was sitting in a PhD class with a very well-known feminist sociologist, and he was a mentor to me, and he gave my husband away at my wedding. He walked me down the aisle, and I just started to realize that as much as I love this man, he's just full of shit. And I just realized he was like a religious person who puts the religion first and doesn't do data. And I realized that his religion was just anti-straight male. And then I thought, what else have I been duped into? And then a student asked me what I thought of something. And here I was, a professor of masculinity. And I was like, what? I've never heard of that. And I was stupefied that I had never heard of this. I forgot what concept it was. I'm like, where did you learn about this? He says, Reddit. I'm like, then I looked it up and I was like, oh my God, that came from the Journal of Cross-Cultural Psychology. Oh my God, there's all these researchers who are doing this. How could I not have known about this? And it was a mind-blowing moment. So I got into the advocating for heterosexual men through that mentality. And then I started to add to it. I'm like, well, what can I add new to this? Well, I'm sports. And I see my athletes getting concussions all the time. And I knew about CTE. And I thought, these poor straight men are being duped into playing these sports. and that is literally a war against their brains, and so I started studying that. So, yeah, so all of my things kind of led to another. Yeah, so it is personal interest, but.
Before 25?
Oh God, no. I didn't come out of the closet until I was 25. I didn't get my PhD until I was 36.
Okay.
And so now that I'm 38, I've done a lot in those 2 years.
Yeah.
No, this is a 30-year, 30-year research trajectory.
Yeah. Just what led you to England?
Job. Finished PhD, UCI, needed a job. England was like, hey, we'll give you one. Top-notch university there. My husband and I were like, hey, let's go there for 2 years. We'll travel Europe and we'll look for jobs here. And then we got to England and he was diagnosed with a horrible cancer that, you know, we didn't have health insurance to pay for in this country, so we stayed there. And then 2 years turned into 20, and then we were thinking about coming back anyhow because I was missing home a lot. And then they got a new government elected, and the new government was like, we want your American money. And I said, you can't have it. We're leaving the country. And so I plopped my butt back here. And I'm so grateful for that.
Yeah.
Because there's so much more to life than money and career. Like, it's hard for me, personally, psychologically. I'm venting to you. You're doing therapy with me now. It's really hard for me, which is why I'm so glad Dr. Fergie asked me to do this. Because in England, I was a big deal.
Yeah.
Ego.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, it's like, that's gone overnight. It's like a professional football player being told you got to find a concussion, you're never playing again. It's like overnight. So I'm really happy to, like, that's why I took these classes, so I keep my brain going, and I wanted to learn about stuff I didn't know much about psychology and all of that, and, you know, so you can tell I love lecturing, right? But I'm also really happy because my kids are 13, they're in 8th grade, and every day they get out of school and I take them to go do something. And I never would have been able to do that. So it's kind of a happy accident. And I'll find an academic job again someday. Maybe when they go to university, I'll go with them. Study the same thing like you're doing with your son. But yeah, that's my personal narrative in it. Connor, you had your arm was twitching, and I know it's not because they took your, you have a left brain, what are you talking about? Seizure.
Never really these days. Actually, would you mind going back to the slide regarding the slide 2? Actually, well, the slide 1. So, you made a lot of comments kind of like on the general state of men's sociology, etc. I know you mentioned a lot of like research basis was like jocks, athletic men.
Yeah.
You know, speaking from like an evolutionary psychologist perspective, they, as a minority, you know, there's genetic differences between men, there's hormonal differences between men, there's some, you know, physiological differences depending on how you develop. And then speaking first of Gemini from last week, you know, you have, it's a very small minority at the top who has the power and the freedom to, you know, maybe rebel against the system a little bit because they have fallbacks. But I see you base a lot of like the general comments of men as an entire being on this very small, very powerful subset, arguably with, you know, certain genetic differences that might make them more prone or less prone to something. So how have you kind of hedged against confirmation bias in this fairly small pool with certain advantages that a lot of men as a sex, as a gender, don't really have?
I totally hear you. And that's a very astute comment. Right, so I'm pulling from the same sample pool, same type of male for a lot of my research, with the intention of, we believe culturally that, go slide number 1, we believe culturally that team sport athletes are more homophobic than psychology students. Right, we believe that team sport athletes are more homophobic than dance, men in dance. So I've studied them because if I can show that actually those who we think are highly homophobic aren't, then that should send a message that, oh wow, we need to rethink this. So it is the right sample for that, right? Nobody would care if I said, oh look, I looked at men who are in cheerleading and turns out they're all really gay friendly. People would be like, and I have done that research, by the way.
How do you measure the homophobia? Like,
So we have standardized scales. Harris got a scale of homophobia.
Couldn't someone lie?
So I've done large scale quantitative studies. I've done loads and loads of qualitative studies. And I've done ethnographic studies, all triangulating this because all research methods suck. Any research method has fault to it. They all suck. So for me to, for example, when I'm arguing that straight men have kissed each other, right? When I argue my rates of straight men kissing each other, I got, you're really good at this. I got, you know, large scale studies to show that. And then I did qualitative data about how do you kiss, why do you kiss, what's the meaning of the kiss. Then I looked at Facebook posts and I got the sort of frequency there and, you know, the context there. And then I actually did ethnography. I used to do a lot of ethnography. I go to a sports team, usually soccer, and I would hang out with them for 2 weeks. Like, I would live with them, I would travel with them, I'd party with them. I just became one of them. We call it ethnography. And so, I've triangulated my response on that capacity through dozens of studies, because I've published over 100 peer-reviewed journal articles and 25 books. I know that's ego speaking, but I've done my work to make these arguments. So that was number one, which is right. We need to men that were thought to be homophobic. Go to number two, please, if you don't mind, Dean. Yeah. Number two is absolutely 100%. Like I said before, I was highlighting the privilege of this particular group of men that have these relationships. I think military men also have this opportunity. I haven't studied it, but I think they have more of that opportunity.
You could study it.
It's definitely good.
Yes.
And but I'm very clear to highlight that there's also a lot of really lonely men as well, right? So it seems to be you're a big winner or a big loser, so that is privilege in that capacity. But at the same time, with culture saying that men don't do this, and I'm showing that the most masculine men do, I think that says something to culture. Go to the third slide. Yes, this one again. I found that 86% of the men in my study had cheated. That's the highest percentage of finding names ever found in a monogamy study. But again, it's because I self-selected for good-looking men who've been in a relationship for 2 years, who had athletic bodies and existed in a sexual marketplace. So again, it's purposeful sampling. Because I was interested in why men cheated, not what percentage. Right? Sure, it turns out 86% cheated, but why did men cheat? And to get that, you need to define men who are likely to cheat. So again, it's purposeful. I absolutely agree. If I was looking at obese men who spend all their life gaming, there would be no research to be had there. The next one. This is actually a textbook. So for your arguments here about when I talk about men in general, so for this textbook, yes, I use some of my own research, but I use dozens and dozens and dozens and literally hundreds of references in this book of studies conducted by other people across a panoply of types of men. So if I make a bigger generalization, it's based in research that's done in men in other capacities. So for example, when I talk about men are disserviced in the judicial system, that is men who have been arrested, and they can be jocks and they can be nerds, and anywhere in between. And that is all documented. And then finally, obviously, I have to study. So that was a very astute observation about research methods. Have you taken research methods yet?
No.
When you do, with Rachel next semester, remember my slogan: all research methods suck. You only really know something. There's no such things as a good research method. I mean, maybe more so in physics or something, right? Or even with mouse brains or something, I don't know. But in social sciences, all research methods suck. They all suck. The only way you can say something positive is when you triangulate it with a bunch of different research methods that suck. And then you go, okay, I've used ethnography, I've used qualitative, I've used quantitative, I've used content analysis. They all say the same thing. Okay, maybe this is true, which is why I do all qualitative, quantitative content and lots of ethnography as well.
I actually have one funny
question. Yes, you were next on my list, yeah.
So you're talking about you were looking for the cause of why men cheat, and I appreciate that you brought up that monogamism. The consequences of it are like a social-cultural issue versus anything else, because obviously there's like species of animals that practice polygamy. There's instances of both. We personally choose to do monogamy. It's like the commonly accepted, but I find the definition of love as a little bit broad, and I understand that in like a one-sentence claim versus an entire thing of research, you probably have a quantitative thing of what love is. But personally, I see that might be a little bit of emphasis in like, if we're talking about social issues, people with like a more secure attachment style might be less likely to cheat on a partner. And I think when you're going into those cultural issues too, like that stat you brought up where 25% of men don't leave their wife if they cheat, 75% leave. I think there's that aspect there where there's so much insecurity of the other partner cheating that it might cause them to do it first as like a preliminary cause.
Yeah. So this is like this. So I've just given you guys a splatter shot of these things, right? That's a whole book. So there's chapters in there about how men love, how men's love is quantified differently than women's love, and our cultural perception of what love is a feminized view of it. Francesca Cansian is the one who popularized this research. She basically says, look, women show love by saying I love you, by writing a flowery note, etc. Men show love by, oh, I saw your tire was low, I took your car to the gas station to fill your tire. And that we have a feminized view of love. So there's loads in there about love and the biochemical capacities of what love actually is.
Okay.
Dr. Fergie would love it, and she could probably read it and update me on some of the stuff, because it's a decade old now, and I'm not a biopsychologist, which is why I'm in her class. So you're absolutely right to say, oh, and you're sort of doing a, yeah, I haven't lectured on it. But if you have a professor that says, oh, I'd love to have an hour and a half or 3 hour lecture on monogamy, love, men, all of that, then I can take you through it all slowly, and you'd have a much more rich, because I'm just giving you the...
Yeah. I was just curious about like what you meant by just love. So I appreciate that you put
So
that.
in there, I go through 5 types of love. You've probably not heard like of agape, for example.
No.
But I start off with what the ancient Romans called love, and I take the 5 types of love. And the love for your lover is different than the love you have for your child, but it's also similar. And there's basically 5 different types of love. Then I talk about the biochemical reactions and what romance is. I talk about stages of relationships outside of sex. So one of my arguments in here is, you might like this. If anybody had a partner in here for more than 2 years? Okay, so I tell my students, you may think you're in love, but you're not in love until you can wipe your ass while your partner is brushing their teeth in the same bathroom and not be concerned about it, and instead be talking about who's going to do what chores tomorrow. Right? Because before that, there's all this strategic self-presentation that goes on. And so I take you through the stages of relationships that people go through as well. So the book has a lot more in it than just about the cheating. And if you'd like a copy of it, I'll send you a free PDF. Absolutely no issues to any of my books or any of my journal articles. Anybody ever wants one, just email me. Dr. Ferg can give you my email address. I'll send you a free PDF of it. Don't tell the publisher. Don't tell the publisher. And if you ever, if you think one of your professors might like some of these, I'll come give a guest lecture on it. I'd love to do it. But yeah, it is much more in depth. It's a 212-page book, so pretty in depth. 380 something references. It was a monster to write. Anyone else? Yes, my friend. All right, Max. Yeah, Max.
So one of the first things you said was that you had an agenda, and then the data did not support what you wanted it to say, and you changed your mind. What advice do you have when in talking with people? I mean, we've had a few examples today, but anything specific when the data doesn't change people's minds?
And the data rarely does. That is cognitive dissonance. Can we go to the first slide? That is cognitive dissonance. What happens when people get into a state of cognitive dissonance is they go, culture, society, religion, parents, family, history, all says that I should think this. And I feel this because I've been socialized, whatever, to feel this. And therefore, when I hear contradictory information, I'm going to reject that.
Yeah,
because it goes against my feelings.
We often have an actual physical reaction in the brain where
Yes.
our brains cannot process
Yeah.
the new information
Totally.
because it's so different.
Totally. Which is why all I can say is the only way to get people out of cognitive dissonance is to, A, do like I try to do, is change the culture, right? And that's a very slow process. It's a very, very slow process, but it can be done, right? But look, homosexuality was highly spit upon in the 1980s, and today, here we are 40 years later, we've done pretty good, right? But social movements are slow processes, and unfortunately, very slow processes. But almost everybody, including almost everybody in this room, who heard me say something and gave the data behind it, and then they went like, well, that kind of actually makes sense. They'll walk out of here, and they'll go, well, that guy's scum. Or that guy's this, or he's biased, or he can't be right, or my tribe, my religion, my family, my culture says otherwise, and I gotta value that more. So the sad reality is people care about their feelings, and they don't really care about the data. The only way to get people out of cognitive dissonance is inch by inch, push by push, step by step. It's like trying to get people out of a cult. Not easy to do. The real answer here is there's a generational effect in play, and that's how you really change it. Like, if anybody has Rachel Rigger for social problems class, I know Connor does. She made this. The students gave this really profound point today that younger Asian students weren't doing something their parents were, and we call that the replacement theory. So it's really not about like me changing a 60-year-old's mind. Forget it. You gotta get the youth. Get the youth. And then a whole new generation grows up with a different attitude, a different understanding. Then that's how you make a change. Changing individual people's minds, yeah, not so easy. Not so easy, unfortunately. We're just not that rational. Isn't there a whole left hemisphere that's supposed to be rational? But does it, fight with the right hemisphere? It's like, we are just not that rational as human beings. Yeah, I find myself doing it all the time. Like, I cannot tell you how many times I've had to go, holy cow, I've just had my worldview shocked. I can't believe how wrong I was about something. And it's not easy. It's not easy to admit. But I enjoy it. I've learned to enjoy it. I'm like, ooh, wow, I'm still growing as a human. Like, I'm still learning. If you find it fun, interrogating your beliefs, well, you're probably halfway there. Because the emotion is fun, But yeah, honestly, trying to change people's minds, it's not easy. And the more contentious the issue, the more they just stigmatize you. I mean, I've had like the rugby football union use my sexuality against me. Oh, what does this gay American know? Oh, it could be a professor. I mean, I might know something. So yeah, it's not easy. And I don't have a whole lot of advice on it. And I'll tell you what, the people who do speak up, they get the first people that speak up, this is from social movement theory, they always get their heads chopped off first. Right? And I'm willing to have my head chopped off. I'm particularly good at these issues. I had a student ask me once, like, why you? Why are you the one to change of the world on CTE and team sports? And my answer was, because I know how to take shit, and I know how to fight back. And I can learn the material. I'm not a brain scientist, but I can learn it. But what I am, brave. And that's because I came out of the closet. I spent 25 years being a closet little afraid mouse. And then I kicked that door down and I was like, fuck you, society, you're wrong. And society fought back, and the more society fought back, the stronger I got, and better I felt about myself. And I think that's what a good academic has to be able to do, is just say, look, I was wrong. If you are. Anything else, guys? I do want you to leave with the proposition. I'm not anti-female, anti-male, anti-jock, anti-anything. I'm just pro-data. That's it. Can I now just ask you, I don't even know what the topic is. Has anybody changed their mind on any one of these 5 things? Just throw a hand up in the air. Okay. Has what I said entrenched anyone's, okay, now, is there anybody who agreed with me on any, I don't even know what issue, any of these issues coming into here you actually agreed with me on first anyhow? Oh, that's fascinating to me. That's mind-blowing to me. Like, I didn't think you guys would agree with any of this stuff. That's very interesting. Okay, but well done, guys. Some of you changed some of your minds. You thought differently about stuff. At least you see another side, and yeah, I appreciate that. And it's fun doing it. So if you ever want to get speaker in any of your classes, ask any professors. I'm happy to do it. I love lecturing, as you can tell.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.